G'day viewers, my name is Michael and welcome back to Single Racer, or as James Bond might say it, Racer. Single Racer. Or you can just call me by my nickname Traminator after driving trams for over 20 years. But today I want to talk a little bit about ACC or Competizione as it's commonly known. Because to me it's always been kind of like as if you took a plain A2 piece of paper and just ripped it in two, because for everything on one side that is fantastic about it, there's so many things on the other side that's absolutely frustrating. And so for me, the two main reasons that I actually stopped playing it or was reluctant to play it were the two main bad things, which is arguably bad VR implementation, as well as I had problems with doing anything online. Now admittedly Australia has very poor internet with pings when you're getting on American servers of 300 to 400, so that's partly our fault, you know, that's not ACC's fault, but it still wasn't a great experience overall. And so for me personally, having come from the point of view of racing in VR already, it was a big turn off that I couldn't race in VR in this game. Now admittedly I've got an average PC as well, you know, the mid-tier kind of PC that struggled to run it in VR, but it's ironic that VR is almost the template for this game, in the sense that up close in VR and this game everything looks great, but when you look down a bit further at the distance you realise it's false and that it doesn't look so good all of a sudden. But yet for all its bad faults, this could actually be a fantastic game, and as silly as this sounds, when you are so locked into VR, especially from the point of view that you understand what the car is doing better because you're literally in what feels like a live realistic 3D model of a car and you can sense what it's doing better. But I realised that well, why not just play the game in 2D, as silly as that sounds. But so I gave it a go, and I must admit that that was one thing in the beta and the first on full release. I found, and this is just a personal opinion, but I found that rather than the cars feeling like they were oversteering, or in other words the back end was giving out and you had to try and correct to get it back, I felt it was actually as if you stuck a pin in the middle of on the roof, down on top of the car, right in the center of the car, and it span like a top. It didn't feel like the back end was getting out to the point where you could catch it. It just felt like it was spinning like a top and you couldn't do anything about it. And yet, determined to give 2D a go, I felt that I noticed improvements. Now this could be just my imagination, as a friend Tuner has suggested, but I do feel that it's gotten better. He says I might have just been getting more used to racing in 2D again, but I do feel that it's better up with these minor updates to now version 1.04. Now there's probably going to be a 5 by the time I actually get this video finished. They've been coming out quite quickly, but I do feel it's improved a lot, but that's just my opinion. And now to sum up, one of the really good things is I've been surprised how many good cars I think there are in the game. Again, just a personal opinion, but I like most of the cars. But what I want to do here is do both a separate hot lap and a race in one of my favourite car and track combinations, which is the Audi R8 on the Nürburgring racetrack. And I want to talk a little bit in the hot lap about the interesting part that I always talk about me using a shallow line, but the way the racetrack is shaped, sometimes that is not good to do that, and it's actually better not to take a shallow line. And I just want to talk about the differences between when I don't do that kind of thing. And then I have a race where I try and do that, but the interesting part in a race is that because other cars are around you, like I say the HeliCorsa thing, and it's funny that they've got ACC has got their own type of HeliCorsa already built into the game, which is great. But it's funny how you can't apply those Hotlap tips when you're racing and you're forced into a bad position. So I'll talk about all that, and so now let's head over to the Hotlap where I'll talk about it in more detail. But just before we head over to the track, I want to talk about 4 specific points in slightly more detail, and that's only because I don't think the Hotlap will allow me to get that type of conversation out quick enough before I get to the next corner. So the 4 points are: you come around what is essentially a hairpin corner onto the straight, and normally I take that tightly because the idea being that you don't allow race cars to come inside you and use that space. But in a Hotlap, I actually don't take a tight line. I shape the hairpin into what is more considered a bullet shape. And the idea is that I'm running out as wide as I can to then get a longer and more sustained acceleration onto the straight to try and maximize my speed over the start finish line. And then the first corner after the straight, I try and actually run that shallow line with the idea of straightening up the car, because the way the corner is shaped, which is it's off camber, can throw the rear end out. So I'm trying to minimize that when there are no other cars on the track and all you're doing is either qualifying or Hotlap. So I'm trying to straighten that out as much as possible. Now 2 corners after that, you could do the same thing, but I find interestingly that running out wide and then turning in sharp actually flicks the rear end around, because that is one of those corners that you get severely penalized if you run just too far over to the left. And so I deliberately almost try and tweak it so the rear end slips out a bit, but that makes me in a better straight line for the run down the hill. And finally, the last point I wanted to make was that last little S bend just as you come onto the last hairpin onto the straight again. And that you're in 5th gear by this time, and I deliberately change early down to 2nd with the idea that I am in 2nd a little bit earlier than maybe a lot of other people. Now you wouldn't do this in a race because you run the risk of getting hit from behind, but what I find in a Hotlap is it allows me to have a balanced car, and then I pick up the accelerator, and I'll talk about that in the Hotlap, how I pick up the accelerator and then dance through that S-bend on the accelerator rather than trying to, say, trail brake where you're braking and trying to turn at the same time, which is much, much harder. Now, I didn't feel that I could get all that out in the Hotlap itself, so I'll just kind of talk highlights in the Hotlap, but I just wanted to make you aware of those 4 crucial points that to me help in the Hotlap overall. And so now let's head over to that Hotlap in full speed so you can see what I'm talking about in action. Okay folks, now it is a shame that the VR isn't optimized as well as we had hoped, but the 2D still looks stunning. I mean, that looks like a real tyre to me, like I could feel the rubber if I put my hand on it. Quite amazing. So although the VR side is still frustrating, it's still good to be able to race the game in 2D. And so now I'll talk about the Hotlap as far as all those points that I tried to make. So as my crew gets ready here, let's head off now and do this Hotlap. Okay, so the first point is about that bullet shape. So rather than taking a narrow line at the start of the Hotlap, I want to do this bullet shape to maximize the actual speed onto the start finish line, or across the start finish line. So here I run out wide, and then see I get as much power as I can before I even get out of the corner to try and maximize the speed over the start finish line. Here is that narrow line that I deliberately take with the idea of trying to stop the back end spinning out. See, so I straighten the car as much as possible. See, and the car settles down better as it hunkers into that dip in the track. Here I pause a little bit to try and get a better line out of the track, and here hesitate as well. Hesitate to let the car turn, and here's where I run out wide to try and flick that back end out. Now you mightn't see it in the video, but when you're driving you can feel the back end coming out better and you get a better speed down this hill. Now running narrow here as well as here, but here you want to kind of open it up to maximize that green runoff here. Not too much because you don't want to get a penalty, of course. Now I brake at the bitumen here on the left, brake, and then try and roll with this corner. Again, kind of pausing and letting the car turn and then get the speed coming up the hill. This is a great corner, this one. So up to 4, but then ease off to try and get the balance. Try not to hit that too hard because it unsettles the car. That probably wasn't too good, but up to 5th, and then do not ride the curb. If you watch the AI, none of them ride the curb. So maybe if you've got a tuned car, you could do that better. But for now, I find that it unsettles the car a bit too much. Get all your speed coming down here. Now this is the bit where I change down to 2nd, but a bit earlier than normal. And then hit the accelerator. So down to 2nd, but now I pick up the accelerator to balance the car out. See, and I can control the car better on the accelerator. And now I run the narrower line because I'm doing a full lap rather than trying to just get the speed onto the start finish line. So as we cross over, what speed do I get? I 158. Now that's no alien speed by any means, but I'm pretty happy with that. So as I practice and get better, we'll see how we go in the race now. So let's head over now to the race. Okay folks, so now here we are in a field of 10 cars in a timed 5-minute race, and let's see how we do against all these others. As I get ready to warm the car up, and whoa, a bit of a wheelie at the start. As we go into the cockpit now, let's get ready to take off, and the first thing you want to do, of course, is warm those tyres up. So a bit of zigzagging, which is very common in V8 supercars, of course, as we get ready to cross the start finish line. And as we get ready to cross the start finish line in formation, we get set, the nerves are tingling, and we are off. And it's a clean start as I run on the inside to try and get a tighter line. And as we rewind it just a little to get the view from the in-car footage, let's see that start again, and we're off, and it's a clean start. I dive on the inside to try and get that narrow line that I prefer on the first corner, because I know it's going to be a bit chaotic here as we try for a clean line. Yeah, see how straight I can get the car. See, and I get a beautiful run immediately off that first corner rather than trying to control the car. Here I just need to balance the car. I'm still a little overexcited, just trying to settle the nerves down to see. Oh, and I get a punt from behind. That Bentley just punted me out. I can't believe it. Okay, so now I've got to refocus. I'm a little bit frazzled here, so just settle down and concentrate on hot laps. Just a clean line. Run that narrow line here. And again, down to second here. Try and use the flow-on effect down the hill. I'm looking for the bitumen here on the left as my braking point. So brake here, that's it, and just roll with the curb. Just try and sort of be patient to get through that, to apply power coming up the hill. As I take it up to fourth, and then I ease off to try and be balanced. Can I? Oh, that was good. That was very good through that. That was a good set of corners. So down to second through here. Notice how none of the AI cars ride that curb. I found that very interesting. Down to second again to try and maximise the speed out. Now it's just flying down this particular back straight, just awesome. Now here's where I changed down to second earlier to try and balance on the accelerator. So down to second here and then pick up the accelerator, try and get the car stable and get through that corner. Now I haven't gained anything, but I haven't lost anything either. So nice tight through this hairpin. Try and maximise the speed out as we try and catch these cars here. Now, just to explain, I run out wide here deliberately and then try and straighten the car up. So it's out wide and then down to second, down to first, and now, see, I try and straighten the car up so it doesn't kick on me. And look how much I've gained on the other cars in front. Now I can feel that Ferrari right beside me there, so I'm trying to give it room. So I can't run out wide, so I have to run the narrow line. I've got no choice, but now, see, I've managed to avoid hitting it, and I'm clear to race this Bentley. I've got to try and get past this Bentley. As we come, I love this corner, gee, but trying to run that narrow, it's so hard. You want to push, push, push. Here, oh, he's giving him a bump, so that might help me. I had to back off a little bit there because I didn't want to hit them as well. And brake and this bitumen here on the left. Try and be smooth through here. It's so hard. This is the hardest corner for me. Trying to maximise the speed out of there. And now again up to fourth and then ease off to balance the car. See, it's struggling. I reckon I lost aero there because I was too close to the Bentley. So maybe that's a lesson as well, is you know, is not getting too close at the wrong points. Try and get through this. So I haven't lost too much. If I can get out of here clean, I'm just trying to hang on here. Oh no, that was a bit dirty. That wasn't good. I lost a little bit of momentum there as well. Okay, now let's try and get through this fast. So down to second and hook up the accelerator. Down to second here, hook up the accelerator. Try and catch them as I come out of here. Didn't quite work, but we'll get a good run onto this straight for what'll probably be the last lap in this timed 5-minute race. So just awesome track. I really enjoy racing on this track. So as we come down to this tight corner again, so run out wide, down to first gear, let's straighten her out, see, and I get a good run on. I always get a good run out of that corner because of the way that I shape the car coming out of there. But of course you've got to be kind of by yourself. It's much harder in traffic to do that. So now, can I get past this big, wide, fat Bentley? Yes. Can I get through? I've got to give him room. I don't want to cut him off. Can I get past him here? Can I outbrake him? No, I don't want to take us both out. If I try and run in too deep, I'm going to not be able to brake. And so let's try and maximise the speed coming out of here. Again, I always look to the left for that bit of bitumen here, that run off there, the driveway, and brake here. Try and be smooth. Hold it, and try and get the power down now. Coming out of there, use the runoff. Up to fourth. Again, let's hope I can do this a bit better. So ease off, get the car balanced, ride the curb. That was much better. Can I stay with him? Can I overtake him? Can I? I don't think so. Down to second. Here, again, don't ride the curbs unless you've got a tuned car or the shocks are set for better riding of the curb. Get through this. That was a bit sloppy. See, I lost momentum again. It's all well and good to have these ideas in your head, but it's another thing to actually implement them time after time. So down to second to try and get the acceleration out of here. Can I get it? Yes, that was a bit better. Through this last corner. It's the last corner now. I'd prefer laps. It's a shame it's a time thing always, but you know, as we cross the start-finish line, look at that. That's one thing I couldn't get over was the flares, the coloured flares. They look absolutely awesome there as we run across the pickup to try and get proper weight for our car. I don't know why they do that in supercars, but there's some sort of weight thing. So as we cruise now, believe it or not, this is actually my first race in the game because I just wasn't racing in VR. So I'll actually let this run out, because I assume we just go into the pit, so I may as well do the cool down. But one thing I love is, listen to that. It's like it's not engine whine, it's like transmission whine. It's just an incredible sound in this Audi. As we see the green flare there, I must admit, it looks awesome with the flags waving. They've done this really well, and this could be a fantastic game if they can just get those niggles a bit more settled and a bit more reliable and a bit more optimized is probably the main point. You know, we want this game to be as optimized as possible. But I do think, my manager and crew chief are not going to be happy with me bumping that car, but I think the crucial thing is, or the good thing is, that they've already had 4 0 something updates. So it's now 1.0.4. So that's a good sign to say they're not just going to do one update and dump the game as is on us. So hopefully they'll rectify all these things, because I don't think they thought it was ready even on full release. So I'm sure they're working feverishly behind the scenes to get this done. As I listen to that incredible transmission whine there, just beautiful sound. I absolutely love the sound of this car in particular, but there's a few other cars that have an awesome sound as well. As we cool down the tyres now, Fanatec, there's a brand synonymous with sim racing as well, as we drive into the pits now. And I'm not exactly sure now where my pit crew are stationed, because being the first race, I can't quite remember. And now I'm in second gear, I assume. Thank goodness I drove through that car and not up his rear. But as we settle down now, one strange thing is that it appears that I'm locked in the pit speed, but I don't know why I was gaining on that car. That seems a bit strange, because I assume we would all be one level if we're limited by the pit limiter. But anyway, so there's my crew now. It's a red thing. If I can just fit in there, no, that'll have to do. So now I have one bonus replay for you, so let's go over to that, and I'll finish off the video with that particular view. Okay folks, now just to wrap up, I was very excited to read in one of the press releases about the full game that they were going to introduce this helicopter or HeliCam view in the replay. So this is the replay of the race, and but it just goes to show the example of, if it's either my mid-tier PC, meaning not quite the recommended to run the game to its maximum, or that the video optimization still haven't quite been done in the game itself. My guess is that it's a combination of the two, but if you do get a tiny bit of pausing here, if you can just put up with it, because this is the only way I can show you the game, and I'm so impressed by this actual replay. So I'll let it play out. So this is Michael signing out for Single Racer. I'll catch you next time. See you later.